Deer and beer.
Person is like, It's like it was ridiculous.
That's a good starting point.
Thank you.
Wow.
Well, on that note, welcome back to Gear and Beer. Today, the pride of Tennessee, Mr. Kevin Key. Kevin?
Hey. How are you, buddy?
You're Eastern Tennessee, right?
Just east of Nashville. Still kind of middle Tennessee.
Okay.
But right as you're starting to go up the plateau. So
Right on.
that's where I grew up. So.
What would you call your hometown? Are you from a town or are you from a county?
Yeah, I'm from both.
Okay.
Smith County is the county, but the town's called Carthage, Tennessee.
Carthage. I've heard it. Never been there. Been to Carthage, Texas.
I have too. It's a great little town.
I don't know whose hair that is on my beer, but it's certainly not ours.
Nor mine.
It's not Lyndon's either. Lyndon McCarty, twisting and tweaking.
There's
What's
Lyndon.
up, y'all?
Kevin's brought some of his cool stuff with him, and we'll certainly get to that. We're gonna do this podcast and get to the important thing, which is smoking cigars.
That is a very important thing.
It
yes.
is it's an important release and indulgence.
That it is. And
I do so enjoy it. We smoked a cigar last night. We're gonna smoke a cigar tonight. I could get used to that.
I shouldn't, but I probably could.
Well, no, we shouldn't. That gets expensive and bad for the old gum health as well as general oral health.
Right. But
We gotta stay. We have to have pretty. mouths.
we're all gonna die one day.
Amen.
So I don't know.
I'd like to
edit that out. I'm sorry.
You're not wrong. That's not that. You're not turning over any stones left unturned. That's what I would say common knowledge, and sometimes you just got to live a little bit, you know.
This is true. You've got to put a songwriter in town. Jerry Salley wrote a song that said, "I can't put more days into my life, so I'll put more life into my days."
Poignant.
I'm like, that is very Zen-like right there.
It is. It certainly strikes a tone and rings true. You just, don't. Was it a? I had a phrase and I forgot it, but it doesn't matter. More about you. Oh. So he only brought guitar stuff today, but Kevin is also a professional bass owner like myself.
Yes,
that's what I laughingly say that Kevin's a great bass player, but I like to refer to myself as a bass owner because we're primarily guitar players.
Right.
We play a lot of bass gigs.
That we do, and I love playing bass.
I do too, man. This is going to surprise everybody that's ever seen this podcast, but I'm a little bit particular. I don't want to play bass if the guitar player sucks.
Did you say you're particular?
No, I didn't. Yeah. I would never say that.
Well, I don't want to play a gig. If
the guitar player's good, like I have no trouble playing bass, but it's just it sucks doing something that I'm less good at while somebody else is doing really badly at the thing that I am the best at.
Excel at. Yeah,
and it's just kind of I can't. I
just like to be a part of a group or a band or situation that everything's just grooving and being great.
Totally.
Even if I'm just playing rhythm guitar and there's a lot of other stuff going on, but if it's great and it's amazing, I want to be a part of it. That to me is the thing. Music's a lot of fun on your own, but it's way more fun when you got other people involved and everybody's listening to each other and working off each other.
Listening to each other is so key in so many different professional situations, from downtown to on the road and all in the studio, everything. It's like you find it's pretty easy to tell who's listening and who's not listening.
Exactly. Yeah.
I don't like the whole vibing somebody thing, but like if you're not listening, you're not going to get called back.
No, and you know, it's a group effort. It always is. So, and it's always going to be better for the group if everybody kind of gets into what everybody does. You don't have to maybe love it, but at least hear what's going on and
Sure,
because we're
interact.
we're having a conversation.
Totally.
So it's like if you've got the one person, you may not agree with what they're saying, but you still got to give them their chance to say what they say.
That's fair.
You know,
And I like to, especially in the downtown thing where you're playing for so long. Like,
oh yeah,
to stay interested, I enjoy listening and hearing somebody do something, and whatever instrument I'm playing either echo back a rhythm or a similar melody, or
right.
like that's fun to me. That's the conversation inside of the song, which is obviously the first.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, just like in conversation, somebody cracks a joke and we all laugh. Sometimes in those situations, you got to play something kind of silly or goofy just to lighten the mood.
Totally.
You know? It's 4 hours of playing. That's a lot of hard work for anybody that's never done what we do. I mean, obviously, we're not building buildings or you know, doing manual labor.
It's a different kind of endurance is required.
Absolutely. But you know, I just treat it as a conversation. We all, you know, get to have our input and say what we're going to say, and we should all listen to each other and just have fun. If it's not fun, I don't want to do it. That's the thing in the end.
Absolutely. I've always said that give me bad music and good players over good music and bad players any day, because you can polish the shit out of a turd, pardon my French, but
we do it every day.
Yeah, but I would rather play songs that I would never listen to on my own otherwise, with a bunch of people of the same frame of mind, where it's like, yeah, we're going to play this song, and it doesn't matter if I like it, because we're performing a role, which is entertainment for a mass of people who are in turn tipping us and buying drinks and staying there. And then people walk by and they're like, there's a bunch of people in this bar. Let's go see why all these people are in this bar. And while that is not how I think about things when I walk by them, if I walk by a place, I'm like, there's nobody in there. I was like, let's go in there. But that's not normal. I'm not a normal person.
Right.
I don't know if you've noticed that about me.
Well, I've looked in the mirror today. Like, who are you? No. But we, you know, we as performers, as entertainers, we always have to keep in mind that it's not always about us. It's about the audience.
It's almost never about us.
Right. But
that's cool.
Yeah, that's cool. But I also do live by the theory of if the band is having fun, everybody else will.
Smiles go a long way coming off a platform.
I'm guilty of being the person that may not always smile. And I get called out about it every now and then. But
you know what I hate though is the drunk lady that's like waiting for you to look in her direction or whatever, and eventually you see them and they just go, and they're telling you to smile. It's like, you know what? I'll smile if I want to, but you don't get to tell me when to smile, drunk lady. It's like, I'm concentrating up here.
Yeah. That's where I just want to walk up and pretend like I'm putting something in a tip jug that looks like a $20 bill.
Yeah. It's like, yeah, I'll smile. You put some money in that jug and I'll...
Yeah.
As sarcastically as I can muster.
Absolutely. Well, you know, guitar players get the guitar face going, and it's not always a pretty thing.
It's rarely pretty for me, even when I'm not making weird guitar faces.
Right. But, you know, you still, you know, in the end, if you're doing what we do, you got to have fun with it. That's the most important thing, and it doesn't matter what level you do it. If you're, you know, an absolute rock star, or if you're in a garage band and you go play at the local VFW on the weekend, have fun with it. That's all that matters.
Yeah, if you're doing the proverbial doing it to get chicks or whatever, it'll never turn into anything anyway. But for the people who are like really trying to do that, I think that's really good advice.
Right. Well, and you'll find your way to progress in the ways that you need to progress.
Yeah.
And in the end, it's a language. We get to. I love talking with guys. Travel around talking with guys who they may be in local bands and they have their regular jobs and whatnot, but they show up and play and they want to be there and they're having a ball. And
the weekend warriors,
yeah, or whatever you want to call it, the local heroes, whatever.
Yeah,
I love seeing guys who just totally get off on playing music and
a lot of those dudes are killing. They just also happen to be architects or or whatever, or warehouse managers or guys loading trucks at the docks or whatever it is.
Absolutely.
And I like that too. Anybody that's good and doing it for the right reasons, like you're talking about,
right?
You're there to have. It's about having fun. We do this because it is fun. And as B.B. King once famously said, it's like, you're not paying me for the 2 hours I'm on stage. That's fun. You're paying me for the other 22.
Exactly.
And that rings true with me.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sitting in airports and vans and buses and green rooms and trucks and cars and parking garages and pushing carts full of gear up and down 5th Street and 4th Street.
Absolutely.
I used to hate the trek back to my car, pushing my gear up the hill, but now I'm just like always trying to like see how fast I can get up there.
Yeah.
And if I can do it with only breathing through my nose, that's what I'm doing when I'm going up there. It's like I'm not going to be that guy over here gasping for air.
Yeah.
I'm going to do what I can. I'm going to try to breathe through my nose, and everybody's going to be like, look at that physical specimen pushing that cart up.
Absolutely.
It's a paid workout.
Thus the reason we love to play bass.
Yes. It's way easier. But on Mondays, I play a double, and it's a guitar-bass double. So I have all of the stuff. I started playing this guy. That helps.
Oh, the woolly coats?
Yeah.
Those are some really good amps. I've not actually played a gig through one, but I've messed around with them a little bit. That actually belongs to my buddy Boo and first episode guest of this podcast. And it was like his green room amp out with Miranda. And he's like, we're off the road for the pandemic. He gave it to me at the beginning, like March, I think, or maybe April. I went and picked it up from his tech because it was just in storage at Sound. At Soundcheck, yeah. I was like, what's that place called? And I've basically been just only gigging with that since. I love my Matchless, but it's a lot. Yeah. Well, I understand.
For a bar gig.
Because you see what I'm carrying to Broadway these days. I got it right here. My trusty 65 Princeton Reverb.
And we'll definitely be hearing from that thing very soon. As a matter of fact, I don't really see any reason to wait. Let's fire that son of a bitch up.
Okay. Well, a little backstory on it.
Yes,
I've had this amp about 12 years now, and it's the chassis is all original 1965 except for the output transformer has been changed, but everything on the circuit's still original, and
death cap removed, presumably.
Yeah, death cap has been removed, absolutely, and obviously it's in a different cabinet.
Yes, it is,
and it came that way. I didn't do that, and it came with the chicken head knobs on it. I didn't do that either.
Interesting,
but it's got a 12-inch baffle in it, so it gets a little rounder than a typical Princeton would because of having the 12. Instead of the 10, which I like because it gets you a little bit closer to sounding like a deluxe reverb.
Sure.
But you're still at 15 watts. I might be able to count on one hand.
This boy's at 12 here too.
Yeah.
I love it.
I might be able to count on one hand the number of times that I've had a sound person tell me to turn that thing down. But Yeah, it's not.
So the Princes are what, 18 watts?
They're 15.
15 watts?
15 watts.
I've never actually owned one. My dad actually just got it's like a 71 or a 73 that somebody had like upgraded certain parts and stuff, and it sounds actually pretty awesome.
That's cool.
He's a banker, but he's a hobbyist.
Okay. Well, what's great, most places that like where we play at these days, we're micing everything up, and you've got either monitors or the capability of in-ears or whatnot. Yeah. So volume is not as big of an issue as it used to be when it was the old club days when you just had to fill the room up.
Right.
And that's
which I'm great at.
Yeah. Well, I can be if I need to be.
Both with my body and with my sound.
Absolutely. I hear you there for sure. I can't fill it up with hair.
Me either. Maybe beard hair.
Yeah, you got a nice beard going on.
I got a reverse ponytail. Whoop.
Yeah.
Hey now.
But yeah, I
did you build this guitar too?
This guitar is actually it's a '79 Strat.
Ooh.
And it was the first guitar, like real guitar, I owned. I had a JB Player Sledgehammer Strat copy before this. That was kind of my folks like, we'll get him a good cheap one, see if he'll break into it.
Sure. And then, boy, did you break in.
Good Lord. I broke it all right. But the original neck, I've still got it. It's in storage at
Is this a Warmoth too?
Yeah, this is a Warmoth as well. This is their boat neck, as they call it, because it's a kind of a bigger V neck.
Oh, okay.
And it's a one-piece maple. And I've got locking tuners, Schaller locking tuners, really tall stainless frets, bone nut.
Do you find that wears your strings out more quickly, the stainless frets?
No, I haven't found that. I just find that the strings don't wear the frets out as much.
Sure.
But I don't wind up. I don't find that I'm changing strings any different than I was before.
I don't know that I even have ever had a guitar with stainless frets on it. I just heard that, and so I was curious.
Yeah,
I don't know that's obviously could be lore.
It could be, but this guitar came with the brass tailpiece and saddles. So as a kid in the early '90s, with all the country phase coming out and Brent Mason playing on every other record that came out of town. This being the only guitar I owned, I had to do what I could to try to make this sound like a Telecaster.
Sure.
And so that helped a lot.
Yeah, I bet.
Just having all the brass down there. And now these are aftermarket pickups, obviously. I still have the originals. These are Bill Lawrence stacks. These are the exact set that Reggie Young used in his 57 Strat.
Oh, okay.
For like the last 20 years that he was alive and whatnot. So this being a little bit more of a country guitar, I figured that it was a good, it was a good setup. It's still pretty stratty, but I'll let you hear down here in the bridge position.
Well, and real quick, so the signal chain is he's going into his Princeton into the aux into what cab did we go with?
We did a 112
V30.
No,
greenback
30.
It's a 112 greenback. Okay.
Yeah. And I think it sounds great.
Yeah, I think so too.
But, yeah, and then I've just got a little bit of this Wampler Ego compressor going right now. No delay or anything, so. It's still got a little bit of stratness to it, but it's got some honk.
Yeah, but it's twangy too. It's got the punch of a tele bridge that the Strat often does not have.
And if you need, I always, with every Strat I own, wire the bridge pickup to a tone load, so you can roll a little bit of that out, and it mellows up just enough, but you still get enough kind of spank out of it. But if you go to the other pickups, like here's the middle pickup, it's a little throatier, but it's still got that creamy mid-range kind of thing to it.
I love a middle pickup.
Me too. I find myself using it more and more these days.
When I play strat, I use a lot of middle pickup. Positions 1, 2, 3, sometimes 5 if I'm playing some like straight up blues. I'll definitely throw the neck on. I almost never use position 4, the neck and middle out of phase. Do you ever use that?
Very rarely, unless I need to like sound like Hendrix or something. Unless I'm just going for something weird.
Yeah.
But I'm usually a 1, 3, and 5 guy. Typically, sometimes 2.
I love 2, man.
Yeah.
2 is great for funk stuff.
See, that's got some bluesy vibe to it, but yeah, this guitar's got a good little point to it. You know, it's a friendly point. It's not a blind you or take your head off kind of point.
Right.
But
Even in the neck position.
yeah, even in the neck position, it's just like you can get some really cool, funkier kind of. Which is crazy because they're stacks, so they're absolutely quiet. But, you can go, there's the 4.
That sounds more usable than mine.
Yeah, it'll do the Hendrix thing, and then of course the ever popular '80s second position.
The Steve Wariner sound.
Oh yeah,
Steve Wariner is one of my favorite songwriters, singers, guitar
I
players.
love everything about Steve Wariner. Period. That's just all there is to it. He is I love everything about him. I love his playing. He's just a great, wonderful human being.
I've never met the man, but I've heard good things.
Oh, you'll never
hear bad things if there are bad things.
Well, there aren't any. So
That's why I ain't heard them. I use stuff that I ripped from the
no more Mr. Nice Guy.
no from the Midnight Fire solo. I use so much
Which he did play.
the part right after that is the
Yeah.
one that the descending
Yeah.
E bends.
Yeah.
Yeah, that shit.
Yeah. He played. That was actually a Glazer Strat
Was it?
with a bender in it.
Oh, of
He
course
had
it
he
was.
had that before.
That makes a lot of sense.
He had that before he had the Telecaster. I saw an interview with him not too long ago, but that was that record, and that was one of the first records they actually turned him loose and let him play on.
Well, he was like a session guy before, and he was playing guitar and he was doing background vocals. And somebody, from what I understand, was like, "Man, you should be an artist." And he's like, "You know what? Yeah, I should." And then he did, and thank goodness he did.
Oh yeah, he's yeah.
The Weekend and stuff like that. What even the there ought to be a Hall of Fame for Mama.
Oh yeah,
it's a
yeah.
little bit hokey, but still awesome.
And he was doing that with Glenn Campbell, which is awesome in itself.
Touche. The Rhinestone Cowboy, the Wichita lineman himself.
Yes.
I guess Jimmy Webb would be the Wichita lineman.
Well, yeah, but Jimmy Webb would tell you that he always had Glenn Campbell in mind.
Well, the best part about Wichita lineman is that's half of a song.
Yeah.
He's like, "Oh no, I wasn't done." It's like, "Well, tough. We just cut it."
Yeah, there you go.
Everyone loves it. It's done.
There you go. Like, careful what you play us.
Yeah, no doubt.
What was it Joe Walsh said about Funk 49? He said, "If I'd have known I'd be playing this for the rest of my life, I would have wrote something different."
That guy, I love that guy.
Oh, he's the greatest.
He's freaking awesome, for sure. What do you like? He's got such a unique voice on both his vocal cords and the guitar.
Yeah.
What a monster.
Yeah, I mean, you know it's him as soon as he starts playing.
For sure.
And especially when he starts singing.
Yeah, or if you see him, you're like, oh my God.
It's like, there's Joe.
That's an incredibly unique looking man.
Yeah. Yeah, he's a rock star.
He kind of looks like he. I'm just not even going to say that. I'll just remind me to tell you later. I'm just going to go ahead and omit that.
We'll bring that back up on. That'll be cigar talk right there.
Indeed. Okay, so that the amp sounds great, and I've heard you play it many times downtown, and it sounds great.
Oh, thank you. It just works with what I do well because I love to lean into the amp, not make it break up like crazy, but
a little hair.
Just, if you lay into it, I want it to scream back at you a little.
I mean, I think that's the beauty of the tube amp is finding that sweet spot in the saturation.
Yeah. Well, and I'll show you right here if you, that's fairly clean. You hit it with just a little bit of a boost. You get just a little bit of grit. It's not take your head off grit, but it's just bigger and meaner.
Totally.
And then, you hit it with a full-on drive out.
And that's a King of Tone he's running into.
The version 4, the vaunted version 4 that everybody loves. I've got a couple of these. I got hip to them probably about 12 years ago. I heard a couple session guys talking about them, so I found one online.
Was one of them Bugavac?
Well, one of them was James Mitchell. Actually,
Oh, okay.
He was talking about it.
Yeah.
But I think Bukavac was who he had really started hearing about him from. Which, I mean, Bukavac's Tone King all day, every day.
You're not wrong.
No.
Uncle Larry
himself. I need to meet Uncle Larry. I never have.
I've met him several times at his shop when I first moved to town. The first time I ever walked into his shop, he sprung up from behind the counter. First of all, I was the only person in there, and he sprung up it was like, oh man, he's like, dude, and I'm like, do I know? Who, that's Tom Bukavac. I don't know him. Why is he acting like he hadn't seen me in 12 years?
Yeah.
And he goes, dude, you got to check this out. And I'm like, okay, Nashville's a weird place. Let's figure out what is. And he hands me a Carina Flying V, and he plugs it into a car Rambler. And he's like, you got to play this thing, man. This flying is the best sounding flying V I've ever heard, man. I don't even like flying Vs. So I'm playing it, and I'm sounding like a fistful of thumbs. And I play it for a second, and he goes, let me see it. And he grabs it, and he puts his leg up on the amp and puts the V on his leg, and his eyes close, and his head goes back, and he just starts playing the most beautiful shit ever. God's radio, as he calls it.
Of course.
Deer and beer.
And the other time that I went to the second time, rather, I went to Bukavac's. The second time I went to Second Gear, he was just sitting at the counter drinking a Coors Light, and he's like, hey, what's up, man? And I'm just like, I was just coming to see what was here, see if there's anything that I can't live without. And he goes, come with me to the back. And we went to the back, and he had his 64 Vibrolux and 3 other 64 Vibrolux that he was shooting out.
Oh, wow.
Earlier, and he's like, tell me which one sounds the best. So he played them all, and I was like, I think I like that one. He goes, that's mine.
Of course.
And then he's like, do you cook? And I was like, a little bit. And he's like, you ever do a pork shoulder in the crock pot? And I was like, actually, no. And he goes, bro, put a pork shoulder in the crock pot with a whole jar of sauerkraut, and that's it. And I said, seriously? And he goes, trust me. I said, okay. I never did that. Never did that.
Never tried that.
I mean, it's so crazy because he's like, he's a legend. He's royalty. He's all these things. He don't know me from nobody. I just walked into the same place he happened to be in and run. And he's giving me recipes and making me play Carina Flying V's and do 64 Vibrolux shootouts.
Yeah. Well, that's what I've found that's what all the greats they're like. They're just kind of they're not just great at their craft. They're good people, and they're good with people. That
has not been my experience.
Maybe there's some that aren't, but we talked about Steve Wariner earlier. He's really the nicest guy in the world. I did get to share a stage with him one time, and it was super cool. I was working with Wade Hayes. We were doing a benefit show at Franklin Theater down in Franklin, Tennessee.
There's a dog hair on this microphone.
Oh, well, certainly not mine. But
it's not your dog hair.
But he got up and he did like 3 songs. We did The Weekend. We did.
I love that mid-chorus mod, man.
Yeah.
Bring back the mid-chorus mod, Music Row.
Absolutely. Just bring back music.
Yeah, bring back mods. There's good music, but there's not any mods. I want mods. I want Brian White mods.
Yeah.
I'll settle for Toby Keith mods.
Yeah. But we wound up doing what was the song? It was I think it was Crash Course in the Blues. It was from the I Am Ready album.
I don't know that one.
It was a fast chicken picking kind of thing. And on the record, he had Albert Lee, that British guy, come play on it some. But we all traded solos around, and he threw me some, he threw Wade some, and it just turned into Guitar-a-Palooza. And we got done.
I'm here for that.
Yeah, we got done, walked off stage. He's like, man, I wanted that to go on for like 2 or 3 more minutes. I want to hear you play some more. I was like, well, you can call me anytime, and I'll come play for you.
You just let me know, bro. I'm on my way.
Absolutely. But what I've been very fortunate that a lot of the heroes that I've met have been just super cool.
I would say that's been mostly true for me, but there has been some instances where I'm just like, really? It happens.
Yeah. Well, everybody has a bad day.
And it's not even like that's happened to me in situations where it's like, it's not even that I met them. I'm just like watching them be a total jackass, and for no reason, in whatever the scenario is, like at one of their gigs, not like big stage gigs, obviously, but like club gigs.
Yeah.
Killing side players or jazz guys or whatever.
Yeah. You want to take, I always say, you want to take things serious enough to be best you can be, but you don't want to take things so serious that you take all the fun out of it. And
100%.
And especially take the fun out of it for everybody else. It's one thing you always have to remember. Just because you're having a bad day, don't make everybody else have one too.
That you go ahead and say that again, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
Because
just because you have a bad day, don't make it a bad day for everybody else.
And this is something that I say about the downtown scene, which I love, and we talk about a lot because it's something that we all do, at least most of the people that have been on this podcast. But if you don't want to do a gig, say no.
Just stay home.
Don't show up, because it's work downtown. Even when it's fun, it's still work. About 2.5 hours in, your back or your shoulder starts hurting, or your bladder starts hurting, or whatever the scenario. Don't bring your dark cloud down to that. If you don't want to be there, or you need a break, take a break, man. There's gigs down there. You can get gigs.
Yeah. Well, in the real world, that's what people do. They get bogged down with life or with work or whatever. What do? They take a vacation.
They go on holiday.
Yeah.
That was my best British accent.
Holiday.
Holiday.
Your ancestors would be proud.
Well, they're mostly German, so German and Scottish.
Yeah.
Scotch. That's a delicious idea for cigars later. Oh, I don't have any. I'm a terrible person, but that's okay.
I was going to say that would be all yours. So
yeah, it would be, but I don't have any. That's okay. My dad wouldn't be very happy about that, but he's not here, and if he was, I would probably already have some scotch. So when you're tracking at your house, because you do a lot of stuff from your house,
I do,
a lot of work
yeah.
for full sessions and fly tracks and all that stuff. So holler at Kevin. You got a website or anything?
It's www.kkeyproductions.com.
If Lyndon will make a note of that, and I'll be sure to include that in the show notes so that you guys, if you need to hire Kevin, and you do, you'll have a way to do that pretty easily. So, I know you got a bunch of different amps. Is there a specific signal chain that you find yourself following or starting with most times?
Depending
on the style of music, or
on the style of music, depends on usually what guitar I go to. I've got assortment of strats and teles. I've got a Les Paul that I use sometimes. Probably the vibiest guitar I've got is a Yamaha AES 1500. It's a semi-hollow body. Looks like a country gentleman.
Oh,
but
okay.
It's orange, kind of calico cat looking.
Interesting.
Or my buddy Gage, that's what he calls it. He calls it calico cat. But it's got a Bigsby on it. It's got virtual P90s in it. So it does the 335 thing a little bit. It does the Gretsch thing pretty well too. But it's just a really cool, vibey guitar.
Interesting.
But
show me that one someday. I don't think I've seen one of those.
I should have brought it today. I already had a bunch of stuff in the truck.
You brought plenty.
But anyway, we'll just say it's straight ahead country thing. I'm playing Telecaster, so I'll have a tele. I've got a little board I keep underneath my desk at home. It's just a leftover piece of plywood I had from something years ago that I put Velcro on, and I've just got a handful of little things on there, like a Keela compressor. If I need.
Which one? The silver one?
Yeah, and it's just the two knob.
Oh, two knob.
Yeah, just the two knob.
Copy.
And I've got that. I've got my other King of Tone on there, and I keep a couple loop. I have a looper box that's got 6 loops on it. I keep a couple loops that I just sort of throw patched in.
That's awesome.
Volume pedals on one of them.
What volume pedal you use?
I've got the Ernie Ball MVP,
Okay.
the powered one that I can use as a boost as well too.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I find that it doesn't suck your tone like a normal VP would.
Have you looked at the Justin Butler through tone effects?
I have, and I've talked with Justin about it. I just haven't broken down to get it yet. I know he does some really good stuff.
That's the best, man.
He's literally making one for me right now.
Oh, wow.
He's probably not at this exact moment.
No, he's probably making pasta.
Yeah, he's probably
right
making
now.
pasta for Chelsea or at like Top Golf or something.
Or racing his car.
He's just being awesome is all he's doing.
He is.
Because that's what Justin Butler is.
Justin rules.
He does. He's a cool cat. You should check his stuff out. He's
Absolutely.
We had him on the podcast. He was the 4th guest, and he will certainly be back. He's done work on everyone that owns a vintage Fenders in this whole town that knows anything about where to take their vintage Fender to. So, and I have one of those
need to do
volume
that
pedals.
too. Of course, I do have to say I've known Jeff Heim for 25 years now. So Jeff and I go back to college days together, and he's always taken care of me. But I do know Justin does great work as well.
He does, and he's not the only person that does good work. Everybody obviously knows Heim. So.
Well, and in Nashville, there's so many musicians here that there's more than Jeff.
You need more than one dude.
You gotta have more than one.
You need
dude.
Jeff. You need Todd Sharp. You need Justin. You need.
It's like a lot of the guys go to Glazer, and Glazer does amazing work. And
if you got 2 months to wait for it, he does.
Yeah. Which
don't.
Yeah. So I've been going to John Levan with the Guitar Services Workshop for 20 plus years. I just take him stuff now. He knows how I play it, knows what my setup is. We've actually come up with a cool way of. I don't want to give away too many secrets, but
don't.
But these are all vintage radius fretboards that I use on all my Fenders. So it's like 7 1/4.
Oh, okay.
But I love tall frets. We've talked about that before. So basically, he's got a way that he kind of almost does flattens the radius of the frets themselves as it goes up the fretboard.
There's a guy, Big John Linden. You know Big John Oliveira from Denton?
Yeah.
He does something like that. This guy back in Denton, Texas.
Yeah. But it
affects the brightness of the guitar a lot.
Yeah, it to me it feels like it opens things up a little bit.
Yeah.
And I always, this is just me. I know it's not everybody, but I always feel most of the time, a lot of guys, especially on Broadway, could stand to have a little more top end. And when I say top end, I'm not talking like that.
Yeah.
I'm just talking about clarity top end. It just
Sparkle.
a little more sparkle, a little more air.
The open sound.
Yeah. And
And can we also briefly talk about how and I know that you're in this category, wouldn't you like to hear more people play Folsom Prison Blues without distortion?
I'd love to hear guys play an entire gig without pedals. I had
well, you kind of can't do the normal Broadway
this
gig
is
without
true
pedals
anymore.
Yeah. I mean, you could do a Roberts gig, or you could maybe do an AJ's gig.
I used to at Robert, actually this past.
Did you bring a pedal to the Tuesday Robbie gig?
I do bring. I've got a small board, not much bigger than this pedal train, with just a handful of things on it. I've got an overdrive, a compressor, a clean boost, and a delay and a tuner.
Yeah.
And that kind of
like a nano or something.
Yeah, it's just a little nano. And but at Roberts for a long time, I was coming in with a Telecaster, this little Bell Epoch Echo, because a lot of what we do has that kind of late 60s, early 70s
spring thing.
Well, it has the Echoplex kind of vibe going.
So that's supposed to be that's an Echoplex,
similar to the EP Boost, except it actually does echo.
Yeah,
the EP Boost is just the preamp of the.
Which I have right.
I'm
here.
familiar. I've seen that pedal, but I don't actually. I never used one.
I had a roommate that had one. I really like them.
Caleb has got great stuff.
It's really cool. You know, it doesn't have a tap on it, so you've got to sort of manually adjust some things. But that was back in the days when Grady Martin was tracking Big Red, his 345 that he had through Echoplex into whatever Fender amp was around.
345s. What a weird guitar.
Yeah, but that was the sound of country music for about 10 years.
It's super cool to think that you can run your guitar to two different signal chains.
I know.
That works weird live and probably great for tracking.
Yeah, well, I don't know that he ever really used it that way. I think he more or less tried to, keep more of a mono signal. But I know when he started using the Echoplex, you could tell because there were several records where the Echoplex was way out front,
Yeah.
If you listen to a Conway Twitty song called "The Image of Me," the first part of the intro is that big, round, clean, jazzy tone. And the Echoplex it's perfect.
I tell you what, are you familiar with the podcast Cocaine and Rhinestones?
Absolutely.
Well, I love going back through that stuff because I don't have much of a background in that era of country music. My parents didn't really listen to country, and my grandparents listened to like gospel and bluegrass.
Yeah.
So like, it went from Bill Monroe stuff to Led Zeppelin and Leonard Skinner and James Taylor and the Carpenters with my parents. So I was missing a lot in like a music education.
That's kind of how I grew up as well. But we had a lot of George Jones and Merle Haggard, and
we had none of that.
Yeah,
my dad listened to a lot of like Texas guys like Robert Earl and Jerry Jeff and Guy Clark. Guy Clark has been huge for forever.
Guy Clark's unbelievable.
It's the cowboy poet. I mean, say no more. We went to the first time I ever went to the Ryman was for the Guy Clark Celebration of Life, and all those people sang. Vince Gill sang. Jack Ingram made everyone in the Ryman cry with the way he sang.
Is it Randall Knife?
No. It was I can't remember. There's so many ones. What's her? I can't remember. There were so many people that sang. and I'm now unable to come up with any of it. So moving on, I apologize.
It's all right.
What did I digress from?
we can edit that very pregnant pause out.
No,
it's okay.
we'll do it live.
No, I saw Guy Clark when I was a sophomore in college at the Station Inn. Very first time I ever went there, and it was during Americana week, and he was closing out the night.
Full band.
Well, he was there with
him and Verlin.
He and Verlin and Susie Ragsdale.
Okay.
And I think Pomeroy was playing upright bass. Just the four of them. And it was one of the coolest shows I ever saw in my life because he just got up there. He started with, I think the brand new record at the time was the Dublin Blues album. So he started with Dublin Blues. He did like Homegrown Tomatoes or something like right after that. And then he said, okay, I don't have a set list. What do y'all want to hear? And he played for about 3.5 hours.
I saw him and Verlin a couple times towards the end of his life at Port David's Pub in Dallas.
Yeah, which is a cool venue.
Yeah, and this is well past being able to smoke anywhere. It's in second location.
Oh, yeah.
And he's just up there chain smoking cigarettes, telling stories, and occasionally playing songs.
Yeah.
But it was awesome, dude. And it was a full house. It's a club. It's a medium club at largest.
Yeah, I hadn't been to any of the other locations other than the original.
Though the original was awesome. I cut my teeth there. There was a Texas blues legend, Bugs Henderson, guitar player. He happened to be a friend of my dad. They used to play poker together and whatnot. And in 6th grade, Bugs Henderson gave me a guitar lesson that changed my life. It opened up he taught me about relative, major, and minor, and all these different positions and pentatonics and stuff.
That's great.
Changed my whole world. And my dad used to take me to Port David's Pub. I would go. I was there 13, 14, 15 years old on a Saturday night.
That's awesome.
And they would let us in, and I got to stand where I could watch him, and I learned so much. His playing style changed so much. By the time right before he died, he didn't even use a pick anymore, and he used to be one of the fastest pickers around.
I was gonna say he quit using a pick.
Yeah.
I did not know that.
Wow.
He's like, I just like the way it sounds better. I went out probably about 3 or 4 years before he died. He moved out. He had been there for a while, but he moved out to Marshall, Texas, which is about 2.5, 3 hours east of Dallas.
Yeah.
And I went out there and visited him one night, and we just kind of played around. And I was like, show me how you think about this stuff. And he just kind of got to the point where he's like, man, I don't even know what to say. I'm just like, okay, I respect that.
Yeah.
I loved PRSs because of him. It's still at my dad's house, a PV Classic 50 that he gave me when I was in 6th grade.
Oh, wow.
Oh, man. The big boy.
I had 2 of them, and I gigged on. I had a 410 and a 115 PV Classic 50 forever.
Oh, wow.
Somebody painted the 115.
410?
Yeah, most of them.
Okay.
It's essentially.
I was thinking 12, but
it's
yeah,
a
that makes
410
more
bassman.
sense. Yeah,
it's what it's trying to be. It doesn't sound nearly as good, but I had a 15, and paired together, they sounded pretty awesome.
I had a 30.
The 30 sounded way better than the 50.
I liked my little 30, but it caught on fire at a gig one time.
You talked about that.
Yeah.
Tony Campanova had a classic 30 that sounded great.
Yeah.
You ever messing with either one of those?
I used to.
PV made some good amps. Those weren't really those.
I used to play when I was first out of college. There was, I forget where it was, but there was a casino somewhere. They always had a classic 30, just as a house amp. And if that was the only place we were going on the run, I just wouldn't bring an amp and I'd play through it, and it sounded great.
Something about and this is just my theory, and I've done no research to prove nor disprove this, but PCB sounds better at low wattage than it does at higher wattage, and it's no secret that it sounds better at lower volume than it does higher volume.
Yeah, I've got a reissue 65 Deluxe that I've had for almost 20 years now.
Isn't that what you got?
Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah. And, after I had played it for about 7 or 8 years, and it started getting a little bit of wear and tear on it and whatnot. And the only thing I ever did to it was, occasionally change the tubes and then try some different speakers in it. But I'd take that thing out and play it, and people would be like, "What year is that amp?" I'm like, "It's a reissue." No way. That doesn't sound anything, But for a 22 watt amp, it kind of works.
People tell me that sound men tell me that they love it all the time. Literally, like half the time I go out on a run, somebody will ask me that same question, like, "What year is that?" or "What is the amp that you're using?"
Yeah, but you did a bunch of shit to yours.
Not that much.
You clipped the bright cap and you replaced what?
I put a Cannabis Rex in it.
That's right.
Yeah. That's a great speaker for that amp.
Absolutely. And it does sound significantly better, but I wouldn't say that it sounds characteristically different, But I think if you put good stuff through it, it sounds good. It's just not.
I don't like the way they feel. I've never liked the way. And now, I don't know that I've played yours. I've played like stock reissues.
No, but you've told me that you didn't like it.
Well, that may be true, but was I playing your guitars or mine?
No, I was playing my old crappy Telecaster.
Well, that probably had a lot to do.
That was more yeah.
Well, I still wind up with those on backline riders all the time. So.
Everyone does,
and I'm good with it typically, just because I'll always have them send at least 2, so you got one as a backup. I used one the other night on that gig I did with Don McLean, which was a bucket list gig, is an unbelievable gig. And
Mr. American Pie over here.
Yeah.
I think you just got to kind of know what you're getting when you get. I mean, obviously, you're going to have it's smart to get 2, but maybe you're going to have more consistency than even, a vintage equivalent. But, things like knowing that there is a bright cap in that second channel and you might not want to run overdrive through it because it's going to sound too high.
And once you mentioned that, I do remember I did have that bright cap clipped as well. Yeah. So, yes, I did do that mod to mine. But there's a certain amount of consistency to the printed circuit boards that at least with those reissued deluxes, that if I'm flying to a gig and I see a couple of them there, I'm kind of like, okay, I kind of know what I'm going to get. So
when inconsistent, they're consistent,
right? Unless tubes have just been completely worn out, and happens. It can get kind of spongy that way. But, the vintage amps can be they're great. If you find a really good one, there's nothing better. But they can be a little bit inconsistent from time to time.
Totally.
And
good glass always makes a difference in the old amps, though.
It really does.
It seems to make less of a difference in a PCB amp, at least to my ears.
Yeah, I think you're probably right about that.
Like putting a black plate vintage RCA in a PCB amp doesn't sound that much different to me.
Not a whole lot than, like new Ruby tubes or JJs or something. And there's nothing wrong with any of those tubes either.
Absolutely not. That's what I got in this Matchless.
Yeah.
That's what they built, this super, high fidelity point-to-point amp to run on the most available source of tubes, which is pretty much JJ's.
Smart.
Yeah.
It really is. And
yeah.
And I say that there's a vintage AT in V1, but
and I mean that does make a difference.
It totally changed the character of that first channel
on the preamp side, especially with the top boost, because those top boosts do need as much sag as they can get.
Well,
in my opinion,
I don't like the feel of the sag, which is like the problem that I've had playing through Fenders for a really long time. It's like the sag just doesn't. It's almost like it feels like a hesitation in the response to me. I mean, I don't know. If
I guess
there's
it's
any
just
validity
something
to
I
that.
got used to.
So many people,
yeah.
are used
But,
to that.
you know,
I'm on the outskirts of this one.
But if you look at and it's all taste. I mean, everybody's got to find. You know, I'll show you what works for me, but you know, you've got to walk your own road when it comes to what your hands are going to do and what your ears are going to hear and what it is you're looking to put out.
Absolutely.
The great thing about Fenders, though, is that if the sag's an issue, you can always go to, especially with like one of these or a deluxe or whatnot, you can go to a solid state rectifier, and that helps that a lot. It's still a lot of times can be a little spongy, you know, if it's biased a little hotter, you know.
Sure.
Which for some players is great. I like them to be sort of middle of the road. Because I like with, you know, single coil style pick. You know, I mean, these are stacks, but you know, for single coil sounding and style pickups, I like it to be still a little snappy and a little bit punchy. But if I plug a Les Paul into a deluxe, I want that sag.
Yeah.
I want just that. You know, I want the Les Paul to bully it around.
Sure, that makes sense.
But that's that. You know, but to me, that's that sound.
Absolutely.
You know, I wouldn't use that on a Roberts gig by any stretch.
Right. Sure. You are listening to the Gear and Beer Podcast. Today's episode is sponsored by Bobby Jam's Kitchen. Want to take your home cooking to the next level? Need new recipe ideas or meal inspiration? Like, follow, and subscribe to Bobby Jam's Kitchen on YouTube and Instagram at Bobby Jam's Kitchen. Cook your food and eat it. Okay, so let's hear that tele, man.
Oh yeah, let's get that.
The other Kevin Key build. You find good bodies, and then you just put necks on them that you like. Is that kind of the deal? You said you still had the original neck for your strat?
For the strat, for this tele, I did trade the original neck off to a friend.
That's right.
And I think he's still using it. But, in the beginning, it's just I play them, and, you know, for a while, it was just, you know, getting refretted like every 2 to 3 years before I started doing the stainless thing. And then I just decided let's just try something different, you know. So this guitar, it's a '94 California Fat Tele was what it was called.
Interesting.
And I bought it from a guy who he had it.
What did Fat Tele? What was the?
It was a single coil here and a full size humbucker here. It had a super 5.
Kind of like a Keith Richards 54 thing
ish, but it had a full 5-way switch so that like you get the single coil there, and then you could get this tapped with that.
Oh,
this
that's
full
cool.
on with that. This tapped by itself, and then full on humbucker by itself.
Oh, okay, that's pretty cool.
It was a cool guitar, and the tone knob had a TBX like it was a tone to a half point, and then above that it had that treble bass boost kind of thing. So it could get really bright and really, you know,
beastly.
Yeah, but not it's not the mid-range control that boost that is on like the Clapton Strats or whatnot.
Okay.
So it's a little different than that. So through the years, the little time I spent down in Texas, I got to know Red Volkart pretty well. And he was like, man, what you need to do to get all your sounds on that one guitar is do the Brent Mason setup. So he routed out the middle pickup, and we put just a middle pickup in. And,
what pickup is it? Do you remember?
Back then, I think it was a man, I don't even remember.
What's in there now?
What's in here now? These are Fralins.
Oh, okay.
This is the Fralin stock tele with a 2% overwind.
Oh, okay. Just a little extra beef.
Just a little bit.
Or a little extra balls probably would be a better thing.
And this guitar is really fat for tele.
California
especially.
fat tele.
Yeah, it's really fat. It's got a Forrest Lee B bender in it.
Oh, Forrest! Shout out to Forrest.
Yep, it does great work. This is the Fralin vintage hot strat in the middle.
Oh,
and the Fralin mini humbucker in the neck. So this is kind of my take on the Brent Mason-ish setup.
I like the Mini.
Yeah, the Mini's great. I still have a 5-way switch, but it's sort of like a Strat, except in position 4, which would usually be these two together. I've got it wired up to where it's these two together.
Oh,
So you still
parallel or out of phase?
they're out of phase. So you get the kind of thing going on
Love
with it.
Sounds great.
And then of course the full humbucker in the neck. But and this is the blend knob. It only works in the bridge position. It blends in this pickup like the Brent Mason, except I've got it wired backwards from Brent. The more you turn it up, the less there. So like here, it's on a no load pot too. So when it's wide open, it's completely out of the circuit.
Can you show us what
Yeah.
that sounds like?
This is just this humbucker, or this single coil by itself. So,
That's snappy.
just
That sounds
good old
great.
snappy telly. But you blend some of this middle pickup in it takes a little bit of that bite away, but it's still got some snap and some twang to it.
And percentage-wise, how much would you say is blended in?
Well, it's probably, I'd say about 20% blended in right there.
Okay.
Now, if you go to more like a 50%,
It starts approaching that Steve Warner thing again.
it does. Which, of course, however this is, if I go to position 2, I got... It does that.
That sounds so good.
Yeah.
And that's just the little bit of the ego, right? Is the ego, does it run parallel or
Yeah, it does run parallel.
is that how you have it set it up?
I've got it...
set it up.
Yeah. It's not doing a lot of compression at the point, and it's got a blend knob on it, so that basically you can blend. The more wide open you run it, the more compressed it is, and the more you peel it back, the more you have just your straight uncompressed signal in. So what I like to do is sort of like that, just compress it, but have a lot of just the non-compressed signal going with it.
That's the only way that I like compression in
Yeah.
a live setting.
Right. Yeah, a lot of times in the studio, I don't run a compressor on the floorboard because usually my signal chain I have at home anyway is whatever I'm running. I've got a mic on a cabinet, and then it goes through an API preamp, and then I've got a distressor, the Empirical Labs.
Is it
distressor.
using the 300 series or 500
the
series?
500 series? I've got the 500 series in a lunchbox.
Yeah. Mike Rennie did the podcast last week, and he brought his lunchbox with him. And
Oh, okay.
I'm like, man,
I played with Mike the other night.
Man,
so
he's so great.
he is awesome.
Great dude too.
Oh, look, tidings of great joy.
Grazie. This very warm beer that I've been holding
Yeah,
is
I just refreshed a second ago. This all my beers are non-alcoholic because I don't do alcohol anymore. But this is from Untitled Art. It's the chocolate milk stout, and it literally tastes like a chocolate milk.
And I would just like to say, as a person who still does do alcoholic beer, there are some fantastic non-alcoholic
There
beer
really are.
offerings out there these days. There's that Well-Being company.
Oh, yeah,
I believe is the one that they brew beer full on, and then they have a process that removes the alcohol, and it makes it taste, and the mouthfeel is so much more real.
I like their stuff. I like St. Pauli Girl.
What's the name of this place?
It's called
Untitled
Art.
I love the artwork, and
Yeah.
it looks awesome.
It's pretty cool. But Yeah, I like the St. Pauli Girl is good for a lighter, more, just kind of refreshing sort of beer.
The Pilsner-y kind of thing.
Yeah. The Beck's non-alcoholic is pretty good too for that. It's a little more champagne-y. It's got a little more
sweetness.
Yeah, a little more sweetness, a little more bubbly.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to think of some other stuff. I think it's called the Brooklyn Brewing Company. They make one. It's called the Special Effects.
Yeah, I bought that for Aaron not too long ago. It's blue and white.
Good one. Yeah.
That's great. That one tasted great too. Brooklyn's got great regular beer as well. They're one of the first craft microbrews to get like nationwide distribution. They're obviously a pretty big operation at this point.
Right.
Well, Kevin, we've reached the point. Everybody relax. We've reached the point of the podcast where I ask you the wacky questions.
Uh-oh.
Feel free to hold that guitar. Feel free to set it down if you prefer.
Oh, we'll just hold on to it for a minute.
Yeah, man. You never know when the damn jam session's going to break out around here. So, that's Grandma's chocolate pie recipe.
Ooh.
That's for later. So, I'm going to start with what's going to seem like the dumbest possible question. And that question is going to be, so we're going to do some either ors, okay? And the first one I'm going to ask you is Metallica or Megadeth? It doesn't matter if you like either. I'm just asking you to pick one.
I would have to say Metallica just because I'm a little more familiar with their music.
I would challenge you as a guitar player to listen to some early Megadeth because the guitar playing on that shit is just ripping.
Marty Friedman is
Pre-Marty Friedman.
Pre-Marty?
Chris Poland.
Okay.
And Dave Mustaine, who somehow just keeps sliding under the radar. People don't realize he plays half those solos.
Ripping on that early stuff.
He's ripping on all of it.
Right.
He writes it all. He arranges it. He produces
I think just I remember watching the VH1 stuff as a kid where there's one episode of something where they interview him and he's like, I was just pissed at everybody in Metallica for kicking me out, and I was in a alcoholic rage, and I did a couple of records in like 2 years or something, and I think you hear it in the music.
Definitely.
Yeah. Anyway, I keep answering the questions that you asked.
That's okay.
It's fine. It's fine. And I listen to all kinds of music, and I did grow up with some of the classic metal stuff and whatnot, but I guess if I could throw a third name in there, I would probably say Iron Maiden.
Okay.
I really dug their stuff, the 2 guitar attack that they had and everything. But there's great stuff from all those bands.
No doubt. And I find myself making the case for Megadeth, at least in this question segment of this podcast, just because most often people say what you say, which is like, I pick Metallica because I don't know that much about Megadeth. And I just have always been a Megadeth fan.
Yeah.
I love Metallica. No case needs to be made for Metallica. They done made it, and it's pretty much set in stone that one of the best bands ever. Great stuff. I especially love their early stuff, the thrashier, the raw stuff. But I like later stuff too, and that goes for Megadeth as well. So along the lines of that question, my next question would be jazz or metal?
Jazz.
I kind of knew the answer to that question, but and that's what most people say. One person did say metal, and
Who was it?
I think it was Lindsay.
Which is funny because she's a jazz guitarist.
Yeah, I feel like she's just doing bits. But
and I love like I say, I listen to all different styles of music, but I really, the older I get, the more appreciation I have for jazz. I guess the more
it's the language of improvisation, which is something that you and I do a lot.
Right. So. Absolutely. And Wes Montgomery will always be one of my top 5 all time.
Anybody who's not considering him hasn't listened.
This is true.
Stranded or solid core cables? This used to be a more pertinent question. I think that everybody leans one way these days.
I'm pretty solid core.
Really?
I think.
Well, I mean, they sound the best, but they break a lot. So most places lean away from them these days, but they do sound better.
Yeah, I go through phases with cable. You know, like every 6 months on a pedal board somewhere, I have a cable just kind of, take a crap.
It's bound to happen.
Yeah, but yes, it's a creature of habit thing, probably for me. So,
do you build your own cables?
I have before. I've done the George L stuff, and
sounds good. Fails often.
Yeah, that's kind of what I've thought. I've got a lot of it on that little board I keep at home in my studio, and it works there because it's not
in trailers or
it's not moving around a lot. And I've used the Planet Wave stuff is pretty good too. It's not bad at all. I don't think it sounds quite as good as the George L's, but
I was just going to say, for the price point, I don't think it sounds as good as they charge for it.
Yeah. But yeah, I still soldered cables, and occasionally if I've got the time to do it and sort of feeling frisky, I may try to fix one that I can resolder.
Sure.
I'm not great with a soldering iron.
I'm right there with you.
But if you've seen me through the years, you'll see that I'm tinkering with guitars and pickups and electronics.
I'm not afraid to solder, but if I show the solder to Justin Butler, he's going to make fun of it.
Yeah.
That's the first thing he talked about when he opened my basement up. He pointed out all the bad solder jobs.
Yeah. Well, that's kind of his deal.
That's funny.
He tells us all
what we're doing wrong.
He tells us, he's like, no, he didn't. He tells us all what has gone wrong in the past with this amp, and then he restores it back to the way it should be.
It's glorious.
Or he can do more than restore it, and he can do the mods like you've got in your basement. The Marshall thing where he does a tweed in the first channel, and there's all kinds of different
exactly
cool
what he's
things.
doing to mine. I'm very excited about it.
I can't wait for you to get that back and bring it to this podcast.
Oh, yeah.
I'll have to come here for that.
Yeah, man.
You should absolutely. We'll 100% be having you back. So clear your schedule. No, I'm just kidding. So I think I know the answer, but how do you feel about buffers? It used to be taboo. Everybody used to be like buffered or true bypass. So the question is actually buffer or true bypass, but I think we're all beyond that. You got a long run of cable. You have to have a buffer.
Yeah, you've got to have something in there that if you're running, I mean, all this stuff that I've got in this chain right here, it's all true bypass, but
the Line 6 doesn't have a buffer in it? It's got a buffer.
I think it does.
It does.
So
I don't think any of the rest of them do. Maybe the Memory Man too, actually.
Yeah, you could be right about that. I really don't know.
What version of the Memory Man is that?
It's the 550 tap. I've had it about 12, 13 years. I wanted to get the 1100, but they're just so hard to find.
That's the vintage one?
Well, no, I have a vintage one at home on that little board.
The big silver one?
The big silver one, and it's had the analog map.
Looks like it's made out of like sheet metal.
Yeah.
Also, I have a maybe like clarification question for you guys. Wouldn't you want a non-buffered pedal so that you can choose, like a true bypass pedal, so that you can choose where the buffer goes in your chain?
Well, if you were designing something, sure, but the more stark reality of that situation is certain pedals that have sounds that you're looking for come with a buffer, and that buffer sounds good. So it really comes down to, if you don't like the way that buffer is hitting your signal chain, you can move it around, and if it doesn't work, then you find only true bypass and you put the buffer where you want it. And there's certainly many companies that make just a buffer, and you can put it anywhere that you like the buffer.
That's what I'm saying. Like, I don't necessarily want I don't necessarily want a pedal to also do the buffer thing because I want to be able to put that pedal wherever I want in my signal chain. You see what I'm saying?
I do see what you're saying, and that's just like a total control. But I think the more useful application is, or the more common application, I think, is pedals that people gravitate towards that have buffers in them. They like them not only because whatever the effect is, but because the buffer is pleasant as well.
Right.
Regardless of where you're putting it in your chain, you're drawn to the pedal because of the way it sounds, and the buffer just happens to sound good too. Like I have a Korg, what's it called, a DT2 or something tuner on my bass pedal board.
Yeah,
and that's like
one of the older buffered.
People love that buffer for whatever reason.
Yeah,
never even occurred to me.
I've never actually had a outright buffer itself.
I haven't
on any
either.
Board. Obviously, I've used the Boss chromatic tuners for years, and I know they are buffered.
100%. A lot of Boss stuff.
I think
is buffered.
every Boss pedal is buffered.
Yeah, they at least
Maybe
the old
not
ones. The old
delays?
ones are for
Are
sure.
the delays buffered?
I'm honestly not sure. I got to replace my DD5. It's on the fritz.
Yeah, but I guess I'd probably be a little more of a true bypass person, but the only pedal that I still currently use that I can really hear signal drop when it's in the chain and not being used is I've got a Noble's ODR1 that does that, and I need to get it to Justin Butler or just buy one of his because I know he fixes all that.
Well, he didn't sell them. He just rehouses them.
Oh yeah.
Okay, right on. Well, I love that pedal, but I don't like it for guitar. At least not with my amps. I use it on my bass board.
I love it more for bass. I've got this pedal right here that my friend Mike Sutterfield built for me.
I'm about to say it said Sutter on it. I was going to ask you. I was going to be funny and
I want to give a shout out to him for that. There's only 3 of these in
Hook 'em horns.
Get out of here.
Oh, that's good. Yeah, he'll text any minute now.
He's Oklahoma swine. It's okay.
He is. Yeah. He's
Love
a Sooner.
you, Mike.
He's a Sooner. But he built this pedal. I think there's only 3 of them. He's got one. I've got one. And Clint Chandler from Lady Antebellum or Lady A, whatever they're called now, has one. And it's the Noble's ODR1 circuit in a true bypass housing, but he rolls a little bit of that low end out. So it's a little more. I was just going to say,
is there a bass cut dip switch in it, or is it just like he built that into the circuit where it cuts it out?
I think he built it into the circuit to where it cuts out, and it's got oddly enough, a little more gain. It still sags like one, which I love. Which is that's just a characteristic of that pedal. You either love it or you hate it.
I wish he still lived here. I miss that guy.
I miss Mike a lot.
I never played with him. But, I mean, I have played with him many times, but the last several years, I play with him maybe 3 or 4 times. Yeah. But I always love seeing that guy.
We've spent a lot of time together on stage and smoking cigars and riding around in vehicles.
He's a great dude and a freaking killer guitar player.
That he is.
He's got great taste in amps.
Yep. He plays these things.
Yeah. He does. He's got a really cool view of that whole thing where it's like low wattage amp into high wattage speakers and vice versa, high wattage amp into low wattage speakers.
Right.
He's going to run a super bass into some 15 watts or some 25 watt speakers, and he runs his 30 watt DC or 30 watt HC30 into that 200 watt friggin' EV speaker.
EVL. Yeah. But it works. But his whole thing is like, if you're going to make something break up, the other thing doesn't need to,
Interesting.
And he's absolutely right. To me, I can see it that way because I definitely use higher wattage speakers than I typically do the amps, but I like low wattage amps. So
I do too, and I like high wattage. Like this Marshall behind me, it's only 50 watts, but that's pretty high. It's the highest wattage amp that well, that's not true. I got a twin back there. The twin is something must be wrong with it because it's quieter than the Pro, and it's quiet. It's just quieter than everything. So I need to take that to Butler as well. It does sound good. It's a very warm amp, 67 twin. But I just I'm searching for words, Kevin. Whatever. I give up. Next question.
2 for 2.
We got cigars to smoke too. To smoke too? To smoke. Since you are a bass player, this is a pertinent question. And that question is jazz or precision?
If you would have asked me 2 years ago, I would have 100% been all the way jazz.
That's you and I have very similar looking basses, do we not?
Yeah, we do.
5-string jazz with Rosewoods.
Yep. However, I acquired I did a little horse trading through my family with my dad, my uncle, or they did some horse trading first. Dad wound up with a I think it's a 2012 American Standard P bass. I'd never had one. I'd only messed around with them a little bit here and there. So I traded him something for that P bass, and that's 90% of the time what I play now.
P bass town.
But, a lot of what I play is pretty traditional country sounding stuff, so the P bass works for that. When I record, it just depends. I probably use the jazz bass a little more because it's more versatile.
I agree. We talked about that last night, did we not?
Yeah.
And you guys were both arguing
I'm
for
team
P bass.
P-bass, yeah.
I love a P bass, but it is. I feel it's less versatile.
I agree, but I still love a P-bass.
I mean, I love a P bass. I don't think anybody's questioning that we do or don't love the P bass.
Well, I would be more apt to say Fender bass over any other bass.
Sure. I'm not a Stingray guy. I've heard them. They sound great.
Oh yeah, and
not for me.
And it's not knocking anything. It's the same way I'd be about guitars. I'm a Fender guitar guy.
I really like Lakelands too. Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but do you like Fender style Lakelands, or do you like?
I mean, what Lakeland is not a Fender style?
The 5501, the 5502.
Oh, really?
Yeah, many of their models.
I've really only seen J-bass style ones. I'm sorry, I cut you off, man.
You're good. You're good. But I just, all instruments have their place for sure, and I think they all do their thing, and that's why we want to own as many of them as we can because
paintbrushes.
Yeah, it's paintbrush. Absolutely, that's the way. That's the way to do it.
Well, and like I just said, I'm not a Stingray guy, but anybody that wants to say Stingrays suck, and I'm immediately going to point to Craig Young and be like, oh yeah. And they're going to be like, oh, well, maybe not. Maybe I don't know what I'm talking about.
Oh, you know Don Mott, don't you?
I do.
Don plays a Lakeland and he plays a Stingray, and he sounds amazing on both of them.
I think I've only ever seen him play the Lakeland. I've only played a couple of gigs with Don. Don's fantastic.
He's got a Stingray 5 that's amazing. But I think you could put a broomstick with baling wire on it in his hands, and he'd make it sound great. As much as I love gear, there's that old saying, it's not the arrow, it's the Indian. You've got to know what to do with it.
No doubt.
Absolutely.
But for the purpose of this show, we'll just stick with talking about the gear.
Well, and
this is a show about arrows.
At the end of the day, it is sum of all parts, but each part matters.
Absolutely.
We can all agree on that. So I'm going to ask you 3 more questions, Kevin, because we're running short on time on this last little. I mean, we could go longer if we need to, and if we decide that we can. I'm going to try to wrap it up because we got cigars to smoke, by God.
All right.
So I'm going to say volume pedal or volume knob. Your answer might be both, but I'm asking you to pick.
I use both, but I probably use volume knob more than I do the pedal. Just because I like, especially with gain, to be able to vary up the amount.
Totally.
I think tonally speaking, if you roll that down, obviously it's not going to be as drastic a change in volume, but the tone is going to change, and sometimes the tone needs to change more than the volume does.
Sure. Well, and everybody's got what they like. I like treble bleeds. A lot of dudes don't like that.
They're very usable.
I totally agree, because I don't, especially with something like a matchless where wide open almost always sounds kind of muddy. Roll it back just a little bit and you keep the integrity of all of the signal.
Deer and beer.
My favorite is the Randy Houser episode.
I haven't listened to that one,
That's
but
a good
I
one.
like
He
Randy.
Made me like Randy a lot.
I love Randy to begin with. The first time I met him was right before Badonkadonk came out, and he
talked some shit on that song.
Yeah, well, and he was even talking shit on it that night. It was a guitar pull thing we were doing for like an internet radio deal. This is 15, 16 years ago, and he's like, "Yeah, Jamie Johnson and I were hanging out, and we were, we just
smoking weed and
doing whatever," and saying he brought up Badonkadonk from Chappelle's show. Is where he heard it from. And I love Chappelle. I love everything about Chappelle.
Well, you're in good company, 'cause
Yeah.
we all agree with that.
Yeah, but he's like, we sort of wrote this as a joke, and he said, and then next thing you know, Trace has cut it, and he said it should be out here before too long. And sure enough, about 2 weeks later, it was on like gangbusters.
He said they were. I think if I recall correctly from the story, he was like playing on Broadway or something when they were hanging, or maybe they were just hanging on Broadway, just shooting the shit.
Yeah,
and that's how that song came about.
The only time I've ever talked with Randy was at the Franklin or the Amigo guitar show or whatever they called that thing, and he plays matchless on the road. He plays DC-30s. This is obviously
Really?
HC-30, but he was in Australia where his wife is from, and he met some dude that like sources these weird tubes that he was telling me about, and I can't find that information, but I've been honestly thinking about just hitting him up on Instagram and seeing if he would want to come talk about those tubes and remind
I just
me
love
of
that
it.
he's a straight up Mississippi hippie.
oh
Like,
yeah, he is. And he's the last time
sing a fucking circle around half the motherfuckers in this town too.
he came into Robert's late one night while I was playing there on Monday night, and had some girl with him, and we're just playing all that old shit that we play, and he's like, "Hey man, there's this old Mill Street song. I'll give you $50 if you'll sing it." And I knew how it went. I had to look the words up to make it happen.
Sure.
And only a couple of guys in the band had even ever heard it. We just tried it. We, kind of, it wasn't a train wreck, but we got
through the damn song.
We got through it. He came up and he dropped 100 in the tip jug. And then we took a break shortly after that, and he came up to me, and we just talked for like 15 minutes about old songs. And
He's him and from what I understand, Blake Shelton are just like walking jukeboxes.
oh yeah,
Really?
Yeah.
I
Blake.
didn't- okay.
Blake is. There's a lot more to Blake than most people see.
That's
And
what
I think-
everyone
and-
says.
Well, and I think it's probably what pisses me off the most about him is because I'm like, if I were him in the position he's in
Now,
I'd make it the kind of music I want to make and tell everybody to piss off. Is exactly what I do.
But I think the kind of music that he wants to make is the kind of music that keeps him
Relevant.
at the top of everybody's thought tree. You know what I mean?
but from what I've heard,
Are we rolling?
he would.
yeah, we're rolling.
Oh, okay.
But
You got
from
whatever
what
you guys want?
yeah, probably have to edit some of this out. But
Yeah, I'm not gonna.
cut this,
We don't.
I don't like to rag too much on people.
Well, and we weren't even doing that. I just, I don't want to.
Stray away from
I just hit roll because we're not about to do 30 minutes.
No, for sure. Let me ask you a few more
bring it
questions.
Okay, yeah, go ahead.
It's by God, it's almost 11. It's time to smoke cigars.
Yeah.
My God.
If I can unlock my phone, Lyndon, clap for me.
Give you the clap?
Thank you.
Wasn't very good.
This is an impossible question,
Okay.
but let's say you're forced to just use a single pedal for the rest of your life. It can be a King of Tone. It can be a DD6. It can be I will even give you an Echoplex. I'll give you a Strymon Mobius. I'll give you a H9.
Well, I'll throw a little curveball in what you say.
Sure.
And I'll say a Boss TU3.
That's a tuner?
Yeah. It's the most important pedal a man can ever own.
I love that answer. That's great.
By God, Kevin Key, that is a very apt answer.
That's a sage answer, man.
Yeah, but because if it ain't in tune, I don't want to hear it. But no.
Oh yeah, man.
But I know what you're saying, and like you said, that is an impossible question. It would depend on the gig.
Well, but that's the deal. The deal is every gig.
Every gig.
You're going to continue your work life, but you only get one pedal.
Man,
it's got to be some sort of tape machine for me, because you can get overdrive out of a tape machine. You can get echo. You can get verb.
It would probably be this Deluxe
Clean
Memory
moves.
Man, because you can overdrive an amp with it.
Sure.
You can push an amp around, and get your echoes.
Anything with some sort of pre, I think is.
Yeah, it would have to be that. I mean, as a close second,
Strymon Deco would be
that would be a good one.
That's a weird pedal to figure out how to use correctly, but
I would say the El Capistan, except
play
for
one of those.
No,
The Deco?
It's one of the ones I haven't checked out.
It's crazy.
I haven't checked it out, but I've heard that it's great.
Boo used to have one on his board at Cowboys, and it was awesome.
A very close second would be the King of Tone. It's my favorite overdrive of all time for sure, because it's just so natural to.
I want to, and I am going to buy. So the 69 pedals King of Clone.
Yeah.
You can get them all day for like $100.
No way.
From China.
You were telling me about it. I didn't know it was 100.
Yeah, it's $100.
Oh.
And Boo brought his over here last week, and we sat in here and we put it through the ringer, and it sounds awesome. And he has AB'd real ones and that clone, and I trust his judgment, because if I have good tone, it's because he has good tone.
Right.
Oh yeah.
And I have good tone, so he's got good tone. But I he's essentially my guitar guru. I mean, he's my buddy, but he's
Right.
he's opened a lot of doors for me, from a conceptual standpoint, not
Right.
like career doors necessarily, but like the approach to tone and playing. I played bass in a dance hall band with him for 3 years when we first met, and playing bass in the same band as him made me 3 to 8 times the rhythm guitar player that I was before, because it made me realize how important rhythm guitar is in contribution to groove, and
Oh yeah.
so few people look at it. I know you don't look at it that way, because I played many gigs with you on the bass where you're playing guitar, and the pocket is always there, and pocket with Robbie, the pocket is always there, but not everybody looks at it that way.
Right.
And also guys like you and Robbie and me these days, not afraid to use space.
No.
Even in a 4-piece with a singer, bass, and drums,
Right.
That's
Space is a good thing. I mean, everybody's ears need a break, and to the rhythm guitar thing, I'll always say the heart and soul of one of the greatest bands of all time, AC/DC, was Malcolm Young.
yeah.
Absolutely.
Riff and pocket, man.
Absolutely. I mean, Angus is amazing. Don't get me wrong, and he probably plays a lot of that stuff, but Malcolm holds that whole thing together, or held that whole thing together.
No doubt.
I mean, and that, that to me is rock and roll in its purest form.
Sure.
Because it's 2 guitars, bass drums, and a singer. And everything they play, you feel like you've got a Mack truck driving right over your face.
AC/DC is a special thing too. That's a very pocket band,
and they don't play anything super fast or super slow. It's all kind of mid tempo, but it's all groove. That's the whole thing. They're all groove.
They're like the anti Led Zeppelin, where Led Zeppelin is like all heady creativity, push the envelope both sonically and compositionally, and AC/DC is they're a Peterbilt headed down a straight stretch of highway. You know what I'm saying?
I love that analogy.
But
yeah, man.
you know, as sick as we all are of Shook Me All Night Long, just because we've heard it as much as we had.
I'm only sick of it if the people playing it with me suck.
Exactly,
man. If the drummer is good.
All you gotta do is play
first 8 bars.
You can't help but tap your foot to it. I mean, it's or nod your head. And Phil Rudd is one of the greatest drummers of all time.
That's my favorite.
Yeah,
it is. Kevin, next question.
Yes.
Do you have a favorite venue?
Wow. Well,
that's not the question. The question is, what's your favorite venue?
What's my favorite venue?
Not do you have one, because you do. You probably have several. Most people do.
Not from a logistical standpoint, but just favorite because of the vibe of the room. And
yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah. Would either be the Grand Ole Opry House or the Ryman Auditorium.
Okay.
Anytime I've gotten to play the Grand Ole Opry, it's magical because of the history of what it is and what it means to our industry here in Nashville.
Sure.
Logistically, sometimes it's a nightmare because it's
the on and off, and
you walk right out, you plug in, you hope it works, and if it don't, you weather through it. It's gotten better because they've got better the crew they have out there is top notch. It really is, but still,
aren't they affiliated in some way with the same production company as Old Red and what's it called?
As of recent,
I think, yeah. But I think they've been their own thing for a while, and just as Gaylord itself has grown a little bit, I think that all fits underneath that umbrella.
I see.
If I had to guess,
that makes sense.
Yeah, but no, all the engineers, all the stagehands, and the techs and whatnot out there are top notch. They're right on top of things, and it's all about make the show run as quick as it can.
I've never played. I've been a few times, and I enjoyed the absolute shit out of myself each time I've been out there.
Yeah.
The first time I went. Billy Freeman, who I know you know.
I know Billy.
He got me in when Dustin was playing, and Restless Heart closed out the night, and I was like a kid in a candy shop, man. I love that band.
I'll tell you what, they
still sounded so good.
They and Exile, those two bands.
What's old dude's name? Rushlow?
He was Rushlow was from Little Texas.
Oh, that's Little. Okay, yeah. Well, what's the name of the dude?
From
Restless Heart.
Oh, Larry Stewart.
That's right. Is he doing that frontman thing too?
He is.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Yeah, they're doing that right now.
That's RK and Matt Krause.
Yeah.
On bass and drums, respectively.
Right.
Matt Krause of episode 12 fame.
Yes.
Working Drummer Podcast.
Working Drummer Podcast. We all love us some Matt Krause. But no, you'll never hear better vocals in a live setting than you will from either Restless Heart or Exile. Both of those bands, and they sound better today than they ever have.
Interesting.
I believe that because I think it was 2015 or 2016 when I saw Restless Heart at the Opry, and I mean, good luck sounding better than they sounded.
Yeah, if the vocals sound that good on the Opry because of everything being thrown together and everybody, and a sound guy having to get a mix up immediately.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And also the monitors being set to where everybody on stage can hear the way they want to.
Well,
if they sound that good, they're that good.
And the rules, right? No tracks.
Yeah.
No click, right?
Yeah, there is you can run a click, and I think they are.
Well, and the damn Opry band be shifting out too, because I know that my neighbor and buddy Eddie Dunlap is
Yeah.
fills in for Tommy all the time.
Right.
And
Yeah.
they're both incredible, but they're not the same dude. So
No.
it's, things are not going to go the same way.
Not all the time, but
They're both extremely capable.
Oh, they're both very capable. I love it.
I mean, Tommy White is Tommy White, but for a younger man, Eddie he's fantastic.
Eddie's amazing, and he's one of. I worked with him last week too.
Did you?
So,
he and I have done a bunch of gigs and a little bit of studio stuff together.
I always say, if I've got to pick a steel player, give me one of the two Eddies. Give me Eddie Lang or Eddie Dunlap.
Yeah.
One or the other. That's my two go-tos.
Either of the cousins Eddie.
Cousins Eddie. There you go. One other venue I want to throw out there really quick that I had a great time playing at because I got to play there like 4 days in a row back when I worked with Colin Ray was Bass Hall in
Fort
Worth.
Oh,
it's a great room.
Oh man, that's right.
Yeah.
Robert O'Keen does a Christmas show there every year. I've been to a couple of those. I think it's the only thing I've ever seen there that I can off the top of my head.
And that symphony or orchestra or whatever they're called is top notch. They're wonderful.
The Fort Worth FWSO.
UNT used to do a bunch of their guest artist lecture series people there.
That's cool.
Seen a bunch of concerts there.
It's an amazing place, as is the Meyerson in downtown Dallas, and they do more stuff like that these days. But when I was coming up, it was just like almost all symphony stuff, and then the Symphony Pops series where they'd have
that's right, yeah.
Barry Manilow or whoever come through,
kind of a covers thing.
Kevin, I got 2 questions left.
Okay.
Actually, I got 3 questions left.
Okay.
Let's say it is a non-practical question, but let's say you only get to pick one piece of gear to operate with. Let's say you're stuck on it's a desert island piece of gear. It can be a guitar. It can be whatever. It can be, but it's one thing.
Well,
I know my answer, and I think it's a weird one, but it's my answer.
Man, that's a tough one. I would have to say electric guitars would be out because you would have to have an amplifier to play them through.
I agree.
So,
but a lot of people choose an electric guitar. They're like, I just want my
Give me
tele.
one moment and I'll show you what it is.
That's what I wanted to see. Because that's the answer to my question, too, but nobody's ever said that.
It would probably be this piece of wood right here.
That's a pretty boy.
Yeah. It's not a super old one. It's a 1983 Gibson Hummingbird.
It's in fantastic shape.
It's
beautiful.
in incredible shape. My dad knew a guy who had inherited these, and he sold them to my dad, and Dad gave this to me. So it has sentimental value on top of just great playability, really good tone, and
sounds very balanced.
It's almost a minty under Grandpa's bed type situation.
Right.
You were telling me about
a closet
it earlier.
classic.
Yeah, that's really what it was. Whoever bought it new. It sat in a closet for 30 plus years, and then this gentleman who had them, this and a Dove, showed it to me.
What year Dove?
Same year, 1983.
Okay. My dad's got an 80 or 78 Dove that I love. It's black.
Oh wow!
Yeah,
I bet that's pretty.
It's pretty, and it sounded terrible for a very long time, but it's so old that it now sounds very good.
Yeah. This one of my dad's is like cherry red top. Yeah. So it's but
it's not lacquered up and suffocated with a bunch of paint.
No, not a ton. It's really nice. But guys like, I don't play, my kids don't play. He said, if you want, I'll sell them to you pretty cheap. My dad's like, okay. So he picked them both up. He gave me this one, and I've had it refretted, and it needed a little bit of structural work on it. when I first got it, but it's in tip-top shape now.
Is this a dark grain or was that a crack? I don't feel anything.
It's dark. It's just the darkness in the grain.
Okay, it's just like a weird. It looks like.
Oh yeah, I see that now.
Right. Huh. Yeah, and just a beauty mark, basically.
Oh, actually, it's a 2-piece top.
Yeah, it's
so
a two-piece.
That's where the seam is.
Yeah,
that's
that's where the seam is.
Okay.
Yeah, because you can see it up. If you look in the light, you can see it up past the bridge.
I'm going to ask you these last two questions, and then I'd like to. I'm going to reposition my mic on this guitar and just have you play 30 seconds so that we can kind of get a sound of that guitar. If that's cool. So the second to last question is, what is the professional accomplishment that you're most proud of?
Oh, wow.
It's a weird question. It's a little reflective. I apologize.
How do you humble brag? No,
let her rip, bro. That's how you do it.
Man, I've been blessed to do a lot of really cool things. This past weekend, working with getting to fill in a date with Don McLean, sort of a last minute call.
I was wondering if that was going to be
that. Yeah, man, that's going to have to,
pretty cool.
That's going to have to kind of slide in there a little bit.
Yeah.
But
top of mind.
I've done the Grand Ole Opry at either venue, and I've actually done it at the War Memorial after the flood.
Oh wow!
Yeah, I've done it there too. So I've played the Grand Ole Opry in 3 different venues.
That's cool,
and that's always a great experience.
I haven't done it. I hope that I get to someday.
You will. You stick around long enough, you'll probably be there more than you want to be.
Well, you can't get rid of me very easily, Kevin Key. So I ain't going nowhere.
Probably getting to go overseas with the USO when I work with Mark Wills to entertain our troops. That'll always hold a special place in my heart too. Because
where'd you guys go?
We would start in Kuwait and then go through Iraq.
So it was the Middle East thing. It wasn't like a Europe based thing.
Yeah, it was Middle East, right in the middle, right in the thick of everything.
That's wild, man.
And
probably in a horribly middle of summer.
No, it was Christmas time.
Oh, was it?
Yeah, it was Christmas time.
So it was like reasonable to be outside?
No, it was cold. It
was
pretty cold. I mean, daytime wouldn't be terrible, but nighttime would get really cold.
Well, yeah.
Especially in Afghanistan because you're in the mountains.
Let's say the elevations in some of those places make it kind of crazy. It's like, mountain weather where it gets hot as shit during the day and then drops 50 degrees when the sun goes down or whatever. Yeah. Especially in the desert.
But you'll never play for a more appreciative audience. And I still pinch myself when I run into people that I met over there when I see them here stateside. It's the coolest feeling. So, that will always hold it'll make you look at things a lot differently too when you come back home.
Yeah.
So,
I believe it.
Yeah.
I've only had a couple offered and they were both so last minute that I just I just couldn't bail out of all the things,
right,
and feel good about it.
Yeah,
it's something that I would like to do, though. Even, the extremely inhospitable climates, like the Southeast Asia's and Middle East, where it's just like brutal to be outside or inside.
Oh yeah. Well, and
from what I understand.
Yeah, it's different in a lot of different respects. You learn how to wear your body armor everywhere you go.
Yeah.
You constantly remind yourself, hey, I'm not watching this on the news. I'm seeing this firsthand right in front of me. And, but it's a wonderful experience. I wouldn't take anything for it. So
hell yeah. I got one last question for you, Mr. Kevin Key of Carthage, Tennessee. This question is the last question, and I'm calling it the King's Court. And I'm going to ask you, Albert, Freddie, BB, or X?
Freddie. All day, every day. And that's not to slight any of the others.
No,
But
you couldn't even if you tried.
no, not at all.
I love that answer,
Freddie.
as a Dallas boy.
When you said Freddie, I almost cut you off. Freddie. But no, I think Freddie King, without a doubt, is the greatest blues man of all time.
He damn sure got the coolest songs.
Yeah.
The progressive writing for that genre is find me somebody doing anything like
I loved his singing
Palace
too.
of the King.
Yeah, I loved his singing, and just every note
So aggressive.
every note just ripped right through you. I mean, he's without a doubt my favorite blues man of all.
He has a way of playing completely out of time and still being exactly in the pocket.
Oh yeah, well,
so weird,
He is
man.
the pocket.
That's fair enough.
But just like all greats like that, they're gone too soon.
Yeah.
But he felt every note he sang. He felt every note he played.
Palace of the King may be one of the finest songs of all time.
It's great.
And
And he always had a great funky band around him too.
No doubt.
Yeah. So, give me Freddie any day.
That's a fantastic answer, and certainly you're the first one who's ever chosen Freddie. There's no wrong answer. That's the best part.
There's really not.
The question started out as Freddie, BB, or Albert, and then somebody said King's X, and I was like, I have to put that in there. It's a very different king, but it is
it's
a king.
Yeah, there's no wrong answer among all those.
I have a spiel, and I haven't said it in several episodes, so I will say, I always say Albert's the best guitar player, BB is the best singer, and Freddie had the best songs. That's my way of giving each of them props and keeping them. They all win first place in the
They're all kings.
in the pageant. Yeah, no doubt. They're all kings.
They're all kings.
By God, that is a perfect place to end it. Speaking of kings, Mr. Kevin Key, thank you for coming, man.
Thank you for having me.
Loved it. We'll definitely have you back. Sorry to cut everybody off, but we've got man business to tend to. So we're going to put links to Kevin's side and all the stuff that we alluded to earlier. I just want to thank Kevin again, Linda McCarty, Twisting and Tweaking.
I have to sneeze.
Make sure and hit that subscribe thing and turn on your notifications. Hit the bell. Leave us a comment. Tell us who you want to hear. Tell us what you want to know about. Tell us what we got wrong. We're into it all. So until next time, thanks for tuning in to Gear and Beer. Thank you for listening to the Gear and Beer podcast. Make sure and subscribe and turn on notifications for our channels. And if you haven't already, follow our Instagram and YouTube channels. We truly appreciate your support and ask that you please tell anyone you know whom you think might be interested in our podcast about Gear and Beer to help us grow and continue bringing in great guests from around the industry and beyond. Thanks again, and until the next episode.